Welcome to So and So, brought to you by Bernina, made to create. I'm Meg Goodman, and today we're shaking things up. This episode is unlike any we've done before. Yes, we'll be talking to sewists, but these aren't just any sewists. These are trailblazers with a story to tell. They've stitched their way through life's fabric from every corner of the country, and their threads have led them to something extraordinary. These talented creators were contestants on the first season of OMG Fashun, led by the unapologetic actress, model, and fashion maverick Julia Fox. Alongside the legendary stylist Law Roach, this show tore through the boundaries of fashion design, flipping the script on what style can and should be. Now we're taking you behind the scenes to give an exclusive peek into the making of the groundbreaking series. But that's not all. We'll dive deep into intimate conversations with some of these contestants to scratch that fashion disruptors who dared to defy the norm and redefine what it means to create. But before we dive into the world of our extraordinary disruptors, we're sitting down with two of the people behind the show, co-executive producer Rich Brusa and producer Marcy Guevara-Prete. Rich is no stranger to the limelight, with 3 Emmy nominations and 2 Critics' Choice Awards under his belt. He's worked on iconic shows like Project Runway, RuPaul's Drag Race, and Top Chef. Marcy, a host and plus-size style expert, has been featured on Rachael Ray, The Dr. Oz Show, Hallmark Home, and Oprah.com. These 2 powerhouses are here to spill the tea on what went into creating OMG Fashun. Rich and Marcy will take us behind the scenes, revealing the trials, triumphs, and everything in between that went into making the show a reality. From Julia Fox's game-changing vision to the intense vetting process that whittled down the contestants to just 30, they'll share it all. We'll also hear how sustainability played a crucial role in the show, its impact on the fashion industry, and what it was really like to work with fashion heavyweights Julia Fox and Law Roach. For those who don't understand, what does a producer do?
That's hard for us to even, I think, explain half the time in casual conversations. But I'll say in this medium, because it's very different from scripted, when it comes to unscripted, it tends to be more of a producer's medium in terms of the creative rather than in scripted. A lot of it comes from writers and directors is more the creative force. I think for me, I'll say, in short, we are responsible for everything the audience sees and hears that doesn't come out of a contestant's mouth, if that makes sense. So
Sure.
We are creative, we are financial, we are legal, believe it or not. And thanks to COVID, we even became a little bit medical at certain points. So we are responsible for conceptualizing and pitching the challenges and getting them approved. And then once they're approved, we have to make them happen. So we coordinate with the art department, the hair and makeup teams, models, any kind of special consulting producers, in this case being our fashion consultant. And even sometimes a little bit of light script writing for just the intros and exits of challenges. And even booking guest judges on occasion.
Okay.
So
I like to describe it as planning a wedding. A lot of what we do, it's hard to explain to your parents, like, what do you do? And sometimes we'll point little things out on screen, like, see those baskets? You'd be surprised. We went through 8 rounds of approvals on those baskets. And those are the ones that I found at World Market. But it's, it's kind of like planning a wedding. You just plan it every day. So we execute a lot of the logistics, and we are really lucky to get to be a part of the creative. And as Rich said, sometimes that bleeds over into, other departments and having to kind of put all the pieces together. And we're sort of, our department, which is really related to the challenges, is kind of the glue that keeps it all together.
And there are several of you working on a show at any one time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It takes a village. I mean, sometimes you do look around and go, gosh, does it really take this many people to do something? But yeah, I mean, our team on OMG was over 100 people because every single department does matter and does have its purpose. And, you know, whether you're keeping the crew fed or you're making sure that we get paid, you know, every single department really matters.
Yeah, I'd say in our department alone, there was Marcy? We had 8 people that just deal with overseeing the challenges and the models. And then there's a whole other group of producers that are what you call field and story producers that their job is solely to follow the contestants' path and story, try to get their backstory out onto camera. They do the interviews and try to lay this out for all of the editors and post producers once it comes time to put the show together. So there's upwards of 30 people, I want to say, on a show like this with a producer title, all doing different types of roles.
How did this whole thing happen?
Well, we have to give it up to Julia Fox. This all came from her, as we like to say on the show, and you might have to bleep me for this, but Julia Fox's bat brain, as she says. Because in her real life, she's become a bit of, not even a bit, she's become this kind of alternative fashion icon for working with her creative stylist, Brianna, and creating dresses that are works of art and wearing them out, but they're not your typical types of fashion. They like to use unconventional materials. She's very passionate about recycling and upcycling. So her and her creative partner like to create looks based on these things and try to get the attention as high fashion and succeed in doing it. So really came from her shopping. It's her idea and it's her baby. And we were just lucky enough that the Scout team and NBC Universal, aka E, had the guts to take it on, because we've never really seen a fashion show that is solely unconventional materials like this.
And I think this is always one of the challenges people love to see on other, fashion shows that we've seen in the past. And I think the interesting thing about the show coming from Julia is that basically when a celebrity has an idea for a television show, they don't just go straight to NBC or straight to Netflix, right? They need a middleman to help them make the show, right? To actually produce the show and get the cameras and the locations and all of that. So Julia took meetings with a bunch of different companies in LA, and the incredible people at Scout were the ones to really woo her, and that I think she was convinced could do the right gig. And as Rich said, NBC Universal took the project on to then now be on E and Peacock. But it is sort of an interesting process how it all comes to be, that I'm sure, your listeners would love to know that little tidbit too. So I think Julia really is, not only was she just so incredibly creative to work with on set, but she is really a disruptor herself. She makes noise. She's not afraid to, really, I think, bring it. And we saw that not only in her wardrobe, but in how much she was willing to push and work. I remember there was a time where they were only going to let her wear like one outfit per episode. And her team was just like, oh, no, absolutely not. Like, this is Julia Fox. She needs an outfit change. Yeah. And, I think that is just a testament to how much they were willing to put in and they were willing to work. And I think just the creativity behind this idea and all of the talent that came together on screen to, bring these looks to life, it is still really exciting, and I think that I hope this show goes on to have a million seasons, because for me, as someone who does watch television a lot and loves it, it feels like something new and it feels like something we haven't seen before.
So I wasn't there for the dawn of it, but I can speak to just the process, having done it before in the past. Shows like I did the first season of Naomi Campbell's show, The Face. It was a similar process where the format's not necessarily even figured out yet. They have the idea. So typically what will happen is you'll have a showrunner or a creative producer come in just for what we call the development phases, to really help build out the format and even some of the creative. And then from there, the network kind of, helps solidify it and approves and gets on the same page with the company once we have all the bosses together and agreeing on how we move forward. That's when you'll have, us come in, the creative team, and from there we start doing our research on whatever the topic is at hand. In this case, fashion and Julia Fox's life. And we come together as a team and pitch different ideas and write them up and try to get these ideas approved by the network. So, if you see 8 challenges in a series, typically that means, upwards of 30 to 40 have been pitched and have been approved or denied for whatever reason it may be. Not even because it's a good or a bad idea, but maybe we have things that are too similar. Maybe it's something that we've seen too much of on another show.
It's very much an art and not a science, right?
Yes.
So it's very subjective. And, to start with, as Rich was saying, the format is like, it's going to start with a mini challenge. They're going to do it in their rooms. Then they'll come and present. And after the mini challenge, they'll be assigned the main challenge. Then after the main challenge, there's going to be a twist. And after the twist, then they'll have, finish their projects. And then there's a reveal. So now we have the format. So then our job is, a creative producer's job is to come in and now fill those format beats up. So obviously for the mini challenge, we would come up with all of these crazy ideas that we thought would be accomplishable with just the things in your suitcase and just the things we gave you in this little box. And then we would just, like as Rich said, we just go through a process of we pitch it to our creative bosses. We pitch them 10 ideas. They like 5. They pitch those 5 to the network. The network likes 2. And then you kind of just keep going back and forth in that kind of a rhythm until you fill out your 8 mini challenges and your 8 challenges.
Would you talk to us about the casting process for a show like this? How you choose people, what qualities you look for? What does that look like?
The casting for this show was so fascinating because I think the coolest thing about having there be different contestants on every episode is that you get to feature 30 people, right? Instead of 10. And so our casting team went through rounds and rounds of deep diving into the internet to find people that have experience in working with these unconventional materials, right? I think everyone wants to be on a fashion show and will say, sure, I can make a dress out of, flip-flops, but have they done it? Have they actually done it? And that was a really big priority for our team, that these people really could do what we were asking of them. If a challenge was going to be all plastic themed, it was like a puzzle. So we had a board with 30 faces on it, and they would start to move people around. And, this girl is really good at plastic, but oh gosh, the theme we would really love to have her in the sexual intimacy episode. So, it was kind of like putting a puzzle together to see not only what materials were being used in each episode, but then matching them with the materials that they would be good at using, and then also trying to match them with themes that were fitting to them as people. So I think the casting for this was really fun, but I know it was a challenge because there's a lot of talented people out there, and there are a lot of artists that are just starting. And so, I hope we get to do a lot of seasons of this show so we can expose a lot more talent and, dive even deeper into this world, because sustainability really isn't going anywhere. So I think the more people exploring this medium and exploring, upcycling is only going to grow.
Are there special qualities you look for in a contestant? And do you also see how well they work together? Is that important?
Yeah. So for something like this, I'd say I think diversity is the key, and not just ethnically, but also in general, representing different ages, different body types, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different upbringings, because that's really where fashion is born. It's an art. And having different people from different walks of life and different cultures is what helps make the competition so exciting, because everyone will get a similar challenge, but you see how everyone tackles it differently based off of their just personal life experiences. So that's a big thing we take into consideration, is just the range of different people within our series, having a good mix of ethnicities, sexual orientations, gender identities, ages, experience. I mean, I think there's nothing more exciting than when you could put people in a spotlight that necessarily haven't had the means in the past, and you have someone who makes garments for fun in their garage up against somebody who's designed for Rihanna in the past. Mm-hmm. And that person from their garage ends up being the winner. Mm-hmm. So it's really just a diversity in skill sets and anything you could possibly think of.
Well, and then remember, they would ideally be good on camera.
Yes, that too.
Ideally, they have a good personality.
Well, even that, sometimes you don't always need, everyone to be a boisterous personality. There's a lot of times too where, someone's work speaks for themselves. It's okay to have, some quiet people in the mix, because those people tend to kind of receive what the talkers are putting out.
Sustainability was a common theme throughout the show. Was there an impact OMG Fashion had on the industry overall?
As far as how the show might impact the fashion industry, I mean, I think seeing more disruptors like this feel like, as Rich said, they have hope to not only be discovered, but to be tasked with some of these custom dresses that all of these actresses are constantly needing. Do something a little different. Maybe they will, be tapped to create something unique by a stylist like Law Roach or by Julia herself. I know that one of the contestants has, I know several of them have already been called to make things for Julia for real life. And so I think that's really exciting. And ultimately, fashion is pretty much, we know, the number 2 polluter of the environment. Number 1, 2, or 3, it's up there. And so I think just any show that is engaging and interesting and entertaining that can continue to emphasize ways to be creative and strategic about how we use and reuse things and lifespan of clothing, and thinking consciously about where you're getting your clothes from and where your clothes are going when you're done with them. I think that is a huge benefit of this show. And it's sort of just disguised in this really fun kind of wild package.
While we're putting them on a more extreme end of the spectrum on this show, it is a trend we're seeing on red carpets, especially as fashion fans and celebrities are becoming more aware of the, the ecologic issues that the fashion industry poses.
What was it like to work with Julia and Law, who are both such influential forces in fashion?
Julia's like another RuPaul. She is just so amazing to let her go on her own. So nothing's really even scripted out for her. It's more of just a talking point. Same thing with Law. They are both very just amazing on TV and very good at being able to connect with an audience and also be funny about it. So yeah, never since the likes of RuPaul, dare I say, have I not seen someone who is just so good at this specific type of entertainment. So that's what I'd like to put out there is while they're in an environment, the drama lies within the competition, and we're also seeing an era where people, where reality TV used to be so much about sensationalism, the pendulum swings both ways. And now we're seeing an era where audiences are more responding to the cast members being friends and helping each other out. And this is across the board on a lot of different competition shows I've worked on, between Top Chef, Project Runway, RuPaul's Drag Race, and this. So, we really try our best to kind of sit back and get as much cameras as possible just to get coverage and let it happen versus, us being an influence of how anyone's going to react. And certainly definitely not in what they say or their own opinion.
Now that we've set the stage, it's time to meet the disruptors who brought the show to life. We'll learn who they are, what brought them to the show, who's influenced them, and they'll share some unforgettable memories from their journey. Bree Billiter grew up in West Barnstable, Massachusetts, and now lives not too far away in New York City. She's used vinyl records, flowers, laundry hampers, fleece, resin crayons, well, nearly anything you can think of, with the intention to create loud, beautiful, sustainable art. Alice in Wonderland turned her world upside down in that she realized that there was, in fact, a place for her. She also was one of the 3 contestants in the season finale.
So I have been designing since I was 3 years old. I have, or probably before that, but the first video of me designing is at 3. And I just always have been obsessed with it. I don't know where it originated from, but I've always been obsessed and had visions of dresses coming to me. And I worked really hard to get where I am. I went to college for it, but that was a tough journey. And now I'm in New York, fighting for my dreams still, and hoping that something magical happens and I can continue designing.
One of the things you say you like to do is to transport the wearer of your fashion into their daydreams.
Right. So I want kind of the world to see outwardly, like what you're daydreaming about inwardly. So like you're at a copier machine at your boring 9 to 5, and all of a sudden you swirl around in this like princess gown, and that's what you're daydreaming about, and then the world sees that. And I feel like that's what happens a lot when models put on my dresses. They can't help but like smile and twirl, and it just like brings them into another place. And I wish that we could all experience that on a daily basis.
So is that why when you watched Alice in Wonderland, it really had an effect on you and how you design?
That's so funny. I was actually watching it last night.
Again.
Yeah. I love to revisit it. The moment in the movie theater when I watched the first one with Colleen Atwood's designs, it just all clicked for me, and I realized, oh, okay, this is what I want to be doing, because she creates an entirely new world, and what she did with Alice in Wonderland just resonated with me so much, and it's just brilliant. And I just knew that like I don't want to have t-shirts on a rack. I want to be creating worlds, and that's kind of what I feel like I did finally with my last collection most successfully.
Who have been some of the biggest influences on you in the fashion industry?
So Colleen Atwood is not technically in the fashion industry, but she is my idol. I am in love with her work, and I just think her career is magnificent.
What motivated you to apply for the show, and what was it like when you found out you were chosen to be on it?
So I've been asked for so many years to do so many different shows, and I always apply, and I never get it. And at this point, when OMG Fashun reached out, I just was kind of in such a defeated state that I just let them just have the rawest version of me. And I was like, if they want me, they're gonna want all of me. And so I gave them a very unrefined version of myself, and I just kept getting calls back, and I was like, okay, and I just like kept going with it because I didn't know what was gonna come of it. And then all of a sudden, I got the call that it was happening.
How about a best moment on the show?
Definitely, easily the moment that Law started speaking about the first piece that I did, because this is someone I've been wanting to get feedback from for years. It's the one person anyone who's a designer right now needs feedback from. And in that moment, he just flipped a switch inside me, and all of a sudden my whole life it made sense.
Bree's biggest challenge?
I guess just being a human. You go to these shows and you're still you still have, how am I going to pay my rent in the back of your mind? You're still dealing with whatever you left at home, and you have to perform. You have to look good. Your garment has to look good. You want to be proud. There's so much going through your head. But the biggest challenge is all of that is happening at the same time, but you still are doing this magical thing, and you want to be able to enjoy it.
Did the show help her expand her skills as a designer disruptor?
I think having somewhere that I was embraced and given one-on-one feedback by people that I care so much about
Any advice for other designers who might want to be on OMG Fashion?
Just take care of yourself, because that's okay to do. Like, no one's going to tell you, like, no, you can't do that. So just, if you need something, then do it, and don't be scared that, like, because you're on a big set that you shouldn't ask or advocate for yourself.
And more importantly, what's her dream?
My dream is to design for Disney. I want to be doing the live action films, and that would just, that's number one for me. And it just puts a smile on my face.
While Bree was honing her skills on the East Coast, more than 1,100 miles to the west in the state of Washington, Jersey Cruz was making a name for herself. The winner of Episode 3, Jersey's brand Jersey Virago, produces couture-level dresses, sexy swimwear, and avant-garde looks made from marine vinyl, nails, plastic grocery bags, and more. A completely self-taught designer, Jersey does everything herself, including sketching, making patterns, cutting fabric, sewing, and overall construction.
Well, I think I grew up in like a small town, and there's not a lot of fashion there. And I remember, I think it was like sixth grade, we did like home ec class, and we have like a little sewing machine. They teach you how to do like a teddy bear and like some simple stuff as part of like the rest of the curriculum. And she saw me sketching, because I used to draw little sketches of my outfits. And then she saw me drawing one, and she said that if I wanted to stay after class, then she could help me make a pattern for my sketch. And it was like a simple, like A-line, like, or asymmetrical, like strapless little dress. And it only was 2 pieces for the pattern. But I stayed after school, and she taught me about like doing my measurements and dividing it, and adding the seam allowance and everything. And that was like my first little taste of it. And then I used to go to thrift stores and like buy fabric that they had there, or like take apart clothes and stuff like that. And that's how I learned, just like fiddling around through trial and error.
And you taught yourself how to sew in the middle of all this, pretty much on your own.
Yeah, I did it in like middle school, and like I said, and that was like, I don't know, a few years, and then I kind of dropped it for a little bit, and I was just being a teenager and a young adult. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, things kind of slowed down in my life, and that's when I picked it back up again and really started like sewing. And I started out making bikinis, but everything I make is just like, I just taught myself through trial and error. Like, I'm not afraid to mess something up, and then next time I know better, or just watch a little video or something.
Well, let's talk about your creative process. What does that look like, and how do you go from an idea to a finished garment? Because you do everything yourself.
Yeah, there's 2 ways. Sometimes I'll just drape it on there, and it'll be more organic, and I'll just kind of just tack it on the dress form, and start kind of putting pieces together like a puzzle. And then I end up like making something like that, and I don't really know what I'm going to make without a sketch. But that's not really how I do it most of the time, but I've just been like playing around with that idea too. But normally I'll make a sketch and put my croquis down and like draw a sketch of it, and then I will take like little tape, and I'll put it on the dress form, and like figure out where I want my pattern, like, and how I want everything to be. And then I'll like pin the muslin on there and get my shapes, and then just start from there. And then I usually do like the base of the dress, and then I'll start doing the extra little, like the ruffles or embellishment, or if I need, the other things after that. But I usually do a sketch first, like when I'm doing something, like, I don't know, something that I know that I want to do, and I'm not just like playing around with the material.
Sure. Talk about your personal style. What does that look like, and how's it evolved over the years?
I think my personal style now, it depends. Like when I'm at home and I'm just with the kids and my husband and going to the grocery store and like normal stuff, it's usually pretty casual but cool. Like cargo pants or some jeans, or like a baggy t-shirt, or like kind of a smaller tank top with like a baggier cropped, little crop tee that I have, and like stuff like that, with like some gold or some silver jewelry, and just kind of cool. And then when I'm going out, like, well, I don't go out, but if I just like have a really cute outfit, or I make something and I just like need to go show it, then it's like, it's just about the whole look. Like, you know what I mean? The shoes, and then like graphic eyeliner, and like a cool outfit. Like, I just want to go like show a look for the night. And that's more flashier and like more colorful. And this is different than my day-to-day cash.
Tell us about your brand, Jersey Virago.
Yeah, Jersey Virago. Well, Jersey's been my nickname for like a long time, so I just like took that as my chosen name that I go by. And Virago, uh, it's just like that word really stuck to me. And if you look at the meaning and stuff like that, and it's I'm kind of an aggressive woman, and I don't like I don't know like back down to anybody, and I'm just like really confident, and I just like the word Virago, and so my brand is just like I don't know, I want to say like for a bad kind of like not the cuss, but like just that confident girl that wants to like wear something unique and eye catching and be bold and like experiment with like different geometric lines and like avant-garde shapes and mix kind of like cool but also sexy, but not like ever crossing the line and being like vulgar, like too risque, but like keeping it very fashion.
What have been some of your biggest influences?
I think, well, not really anymore. Well, there is, but my the late and great like Alexander McQueen, like not so much Sarah Burton. I know she carried it on very well, and I was really inspired by Alexander McQueen and like what he did, and he's like my favorite fashion designer, and I love how he like just went in like the depths of himself and wasn't afraid to do something a little like risk taking and a little dark, and you know what I mean, like just using things that might be considered kind of ugly, but making them beautiful.
Jersey says she has always seen the world just a little bit differently. How did this vision lead her to OMG Fashion?
Well, I've always loved Julia Fox. And like the funny thing is like I probably have manifested it for years, but I've always said like that Julia Fox would be like my number one person that I would design for. Like if I thought about like my number one client I would want to have or like my dream. And then it just happened that she's wearing my garment and like I got on the show and everything. So it's just crazy. But I mean, I've tried out for other sewing shows before and made it pretty far in the process, but it just never worked out because I'm like self-taught and I'm a little different and like more adventurous. And just I don't know, like I'm like to be very feminine and sexy and bold, and I just thought that this was a really good fit for me because of Julia. And you even called it like disruptors, and I feel like I'm kind of a disruptor. Like I'm not cookie cutter. I don't go exactly in the mold. Like I'm just here, and I made it somehow. Here I am. But I was so excited when I found out that I actually got cast. I mean, it was a long process going through different interviews and background checks, like that whole thing. And so it's like you think you're in it, but you don't know yet. But when I like finally found out, I was just like super excited. It was surreal. And like even getting there, I was just like super nervous kind of. And in my head, like, but it was just, it was a really positive experience. And I felt like I grew a lot from it.
Then there were the memorable moments and the challenges.
Just getting started on it at first, like the mini challenge, I was at my hotel room by myself, so it was a little easier to just concentrate and get going. But when the excitement of like on the main challenge, like going into the sewing room, seeing everything, like opening the Fox box, and like then me trying to think of the concept and like just starting on it was I think the hardest. Once I decided what I was going to do and I started executing it, everything fell into place. But like getting started, I feel like was a little bit difficult to me, but I finally just had to commit. Like, okay, I got to start because like my opponents or the other people, contestants, like look around and they have like almost a whole outfit pinned, and I'm like, I need to do something. So definitely getting started and then just getting out of my own head.
Was there notable growth as a result of being on the show?
I think it gave me validation and just coming back to Seattle. It's like a very small fashion community here, and I feel like I don't know, like I did all I can do. Like I feel like I'm not like I already felt like I was kind of a local celebrity, but now I feel like even more like I don't know, I feel like I'm somebody, and them like the judges, their words has really boosted my confidence.
And going forward, what's Jersey's dream?
I mean, my number one dream, I don't know if it would ever happen. I mean, probably maybe when I'm an old lady, but would be like the creative director of Alexander McQueen. But I mean, that's like shoot for the stars, goal eventually. But but besides that, like a smaller, I guess, dream would be to be able to make things out of my garage because I just kind of have my own little studio in the garage, and I have 2 kids and 2 dogs and a husband, and I just kind of want it to be more legit, like have a more of a fashion house and have like a few people and we're all working together, making stuff and getting calls on like, hey, music videos in a couple days, we need an outfit. And then we all get together and or like kind of how Andy Warhol was, like they made movies and films and like they did everything, painting and, just like finding creative people and bringing them all together, on this like pod and just making art. Like just to get to that point in the future would be like my dream right now.
I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of OMG Fashun, Friends They Never Knew They Needed. Marcy and Rich certainly set the stage for us, bringing us behind the scenes for an exclusive look at how the show is produced. Our thanks to them and to each disruptor who shared their story as well. Join us next time for part 2 of this fun and fascinating episode, as we'll hear from even more of the contestant disruptors. Be sure to subscribe to, review, and rate this podcast on your favorite platform, and visit our website, soandsopodcast.com, for information about today's and all of our guests. That's SEWANDSO podcast.com. Our thanks to all who gave us their time to make this episode possible. And I especially want to thank Bernina. I'm Meg Goodman, and I look forward to you joining us next time on So and So.